EA is known for its Madden cover curse. After being on the cover of Madden 25, Christian McCaffrey struggled with injuries and only played in 4 games that following season. Marshall Faulk was the Offensive Player of the Year before being on the cover of Madden 2003. After its release, he hurt his ankle and never topped 1,000 yards in a season again. And Michael Vick broke his leg one day after Madden 2004 was released. But this isn't a football channel. This is a hockey channel. With Macklin Celibrini being revealed as the cover star of NHL 27, many might be afraid of what being on the cover might mean for him. So in this video, we're going to look at if EA NHL has the same cover curse that Madden does. I do not consider the player-specific covers to start until NHL 97 that had John Van Beesbrook on the cover, so we'll start there. The series started in 1991 and mostly featured random players. I actually think a lot of them are pretty cool looking. I feel like committing to one cover star every season is weird when you could do something so much cooler and dynamic like some of these older covers. I feel like the appeal is hockey for these games and the actual gameplay rather than a player. Showing a sick save or Scott Stevens battling out with Steve Eiserman is definitely more appealing to me at least than a lot of these single person ones. It prevents any sort of curse, I'd say too. But with that said, we have a lot of covers to get through. Also, if you are not familiar with these games, they come out a year before the title number, so NHL 97 came out at the end of 1996 for the 1996-97 season. But let's get into it with NHL 97 and John Van Beesbrook. In the 95-96 season, Van Beesbrook had 56 wins with a 904 save percentage and had a monstrous run in the Stanley Cup playoffs with the Panthers, having a 932 save percentage in 22 games before the Panthers lost to the Colorado Avalanche, so he was a cool choice for the cover. After being on the cover, Van Beesbrook arguably has his best season ever with 57 wins and a 919 save percentage, but is then eliminated in the first round and began to fall off statistically, only having an 899 and 902 save percentage the following 2 years. He was in his mid-30s, so it made sense for his play to begin falling off, but who knows, maybe it's the curse. Besides that, Van Beesbrook also used racial slurs towards team captain Trevor Daley when he was coaching the Greyhounds of the OHL in 2003. I'm sure Van Beesbrook would love to blame this on the cover curse, but I think he's just racist. For NHL 98, Peter Forsberg graces the cover. Forsberg was coming off of a season where he had 91 points in 72 games. He had been elite for 3 seasons at this point, and with how exciting his playstyle was, he was an obvious choice for the cover. He also had 108 points during the season that he was named the cover athlete, and went on to win the Stanley Cup with the Avalanche in 2001. Forsberg has always had injury problems, but they started before he was on the cover, so you can't blame the cover for that. For NHL 99, we have a similar story with Eric Lindros. Lindros was coming off a 93-point season when he was put on the cover, and after being on the cover, injuries really kicked in, with Lindros only having 59 points in the 99-2000 season and then being traded to the Rangers. Lindros was already injury prone, so I can't completely blame the cover again, but things seem to really kick into high gear afterward. When I think of an NHL cover athlete, I think of a super dynamic offensive player. So having Chris Pronger represent the start of the millennia for the EA NHL series is an interesting choice. Pronger was always a great player, and being on the cover didn't change that. His production continued, and he won the Stanley Cup in 2007 with the Anaheim Ducks. He's a great mind and a great follow on Twitter too. For NHL 2001, we kind of follow this trend with Owen Nolan. Nolan was coming off of a season where he had 84 points in 78 games. He was a super physical player and was a 5-time All-Star at that point, but he wasn't necessarily super liked by fans outside of San Jose. After being on the cover, he had his worst season to date with only 49 points and never reached a point a game again. He was then traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2003. So 2 players so far who might have been cursed with being traded. For NHL 2002, Mario Lemieux gets sort of a legend cover. He was 36 at the time and his career was winding down. This was more of a legacy pick rather than him having a great season or anything. The Penguins got the most important first overall pick in history a few years later, so maybe the cover gave him some good luck. And now we have some heat with Jarome Iginla on the cover of NHL 2003. He was coming off of a season where he won the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, and the Ted Lindsay Award, so putting him on the cover was obvious. 2 years later, he had another great season, once again winning the Rocky Richard and the King Clancy. He took the Flames to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2004. In the second overtime of Game 6, the Flames actually scored a goal, but video review and challenges had not been established yet, so the goal did not count.
That was a close call, that latest one. And there was the puck. And it hits Jelena's skate and goes off the right pad
Besides this, Iginla went on to have a lengthy career, but he never was able to win the Stanley Cup. For NHL 2004, an all-star named Danny Heatley graced the cover of EA's NHL.
Nickname.
Fucking all-star.
Heatley was a rising star coming off of his sophomore season where he had 89 points in 77 games. NHL 2004 was released on September 22nd of 2003, and on September 29th, only 6 days later, Heatley would be excessively speeding when he got into an accident. And while Heatley was only injured, his teammate and passenger Dan Snyder would unfortunately pass from the accident. This video is supposed to be more fun than anything, so I won't get too much into it, but Heatley's career ended up being okay, notably when he scored 50 in 07. NHL 2005 came out at the beginning of what would have been the NHL 2004-2005 season, but because of the lockout, that season never happens, and Marcus Naslund ends up on the cover. Naslund was the captain of the Canucks, and I feel like with the lockout, the developers in Vancouver just wanted to put their boy on the cover. But Naslund wasn't a slouch, coming off of a 90, 104, and 84-point season. The following season, he had a solid 79 points and finished his career a few years later. If you're enjoying this video so far, please Scott Stevens smash the subscribe button so this channel can get off the floor and on the board. Thank you all so much for your support so far. We're dropping the 20 with NHL 06 and Vincent Lecavalier on the cover. Lecavalier was 25 and a huge part of the Lightning team that won the Stanley Cup in 04. He was coming off of a 66-point season the last season he played. And with this cover appearance, he gets a little bit of a boost, having a 75-point season, then an 108-point season, and then a 92-point season. Lecavalier continued to play for 10 more years and is remembered as one of Tampa Bay's great players. In NHL 07, we have a bit of a no-name with Alex Ovechkin. He was coming off of his rookie season where he only had 106 points and 52 goals. After being on the cover, he only continues to score tons of goals and become one of the all-time greats, only being first overall on the all-time goal list and finally winning the Stanley Cup in the Conn Smythe in 2018. All jokes aside, Ovi was obviously not affected by being on the cover. NHL 08 is a bit of a downgrade from the Great 8 with Eric Stahl. Now, Stahl has a solid career, but he was a bit of a monster when he came into the league, having 100 points in his sophomore season and 70 in his junior. This, along with the Hurricanes Cup win in 2006, led to Stahl being the cover athlete of NHL 08. His career continues to be solid after that too. He never gets close to that 100-point mark again, but he trades in the points for defensive ability, having a solid career. He doesn't reach that Hall of Fame potential that he had early on, but still very good overall. We get our first defenseman in a while for NHL 09 with Dion Phaneuf on the cover. Phaneuf was coming off of a 60-point season where he was 12th in Hart voting and 2nd in Norris. He was a good player up to this point and had that awesome double Dion play in the 2005 World Juniors. He would continue to be good, but he was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2010, so another player traded soon after gracing the cover. For NHL 10, we get Patrick Kane on the cover. Kane was only coming off of his second season with 70 points when he got on the cover of NHL 10, but he was already one of the most exciting players in the league. This cover actually came out before the Blackhawks won any of their cups, and the Hawks won the Stanley Cup the season the game came out. Unfortunately, there's now some controversy that comes with the cup because of the Kyle Beach situation, and Patrick Kane has some allegations of his own that would affect a different cover, but we'll get there. Kane would continue to go on and have a Hall of Fame career. After the Hawks win the cup in 2010, EA stays in Chicago when Jonathan Toews is on the cover of NHL 11. Toews was the captain of that cup-winning team and coming off of a nice 68-point season. Toews is very similar to Kane, where he continued to have a long and fruitful career and did not seem to be affected by being on the cover, even winning 2 more cups after being on it. We get this awesome cover with NHL 12 when Steven Stamkos makes it on. I really like this cover and how it has the big Stamkos and then the little action shot within it as well. Probably my favorite cover, to be completely honest. But as for Steven Stamkos, he was coming off of a 45-goal, 90-point season. And after this game came out at the beginning of the 2011-2012 season, Stamkos went on to score a monstrous 60 goals and 97 points. In the coming seasons after that, Stamkos would begin to deal with injuries, but he eventually went on to win 2 Stanley Cups in 2020 and 2021. In 2010, Claude Giroux and his Flyers lost to the Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup Finals, but in 2012, he makes it onto the cover of NHL 13. He was coming off of a 93-point season where he played 77 games, and he finds himself on the cover for the partially locked out season where he had 48 points in 48 games. Giroux continued to have great production and play almost every game every single year for 6 more years after this. even having 102 points in the 2017-2018 season, before injuries started to take a toll on his career. He is yet to win the elusive Stanley Cup, but his career did not seem to be derailed by being on the cover. On the cover of my favorite NHL game, NHL 14, is Martin Brodeur. I still keep an Xbox 360 around so that I can play this game. This game came out at the beginning of Brodeur's final season with the Devils and what seemed like the final year of his career. So this was a similar legacy type cover like Lemieux's was to celebrate Brodeur's career. But in actuality, Brodeur decides to play one more season, and in the 2014-2015 season, he played 7 games for the Blues before calling it quits. Brodeur, who would have been the greatest goalie to ever play on one team, just couldn't put down the pads, and he has 7 games with the St. Louis Blues, and then transitions to their front office. Even though the cover didn't ruin his career or anything, I feel like it just enhanced his hubris enough for him to play 7 lousy games for the Blues. In NHL 15, we were entering the new generation with Patrice Bergeron. Bergeron was never super exciting offensively, but he was coming off of a season where he had 62 points and won the Selke for Best Defensive Forward. That season, he also won the Selke for his 3rd time overall and 2nd time in a row, but the Bruins missed the playoffs for the next 2 years. Bergeron continued to play till he was 37 years old though, so no damage done there. In NHL 16, we have the second appearance of Chicago Blackhawks captain Jonathan Toews. This came out after the Blackhawks won their 3rd Stanley Cup in 5 years. It was supposed to also feature Patrick Kane, but after having allegations against him, he was removed from the cover. Toews already had a Hall of Fame career up to this point, but it's notable that the downfall of the Hawks began after this game came out, with the Hawks not making out of the first round since the cover was released. Vladimir Tarasenko makes the cover of NHL 17 at 25 years old. He was coming off of a 40-goal, 74-point season and expected to be the next big thing in the NHL. This season he is on the cover, he still has a 75-point season, but only 39 goals. Injuries eventually come to plague his career in 2019, but that is after the Blues won the Stanley Cup the season prior. Tarasenko still has his name on the cup as part of that Blues team, but he never breaks out like he was initially expected to and never reaches that 40-goal mark again. In NHL 18, we finally get the birth of McJesus. He was coming off of his sophomore season where he had 100 points and won the Hart Trophy, Ted Lindsay, and the Art Ross, and this didn't slow him down at all. He went on to have 108 and 116 points the following 2 years, but he has not won the Stanley Cup yet. After being traded to the Predators in 2016, in 2018, PK Subban finds himself on the cover of NHL 19, sporting the Preds yellow. Subban was coming off of a season where he had 59 points and was 3rd in Norris voting. On top of that, he was becoming one of the biggest personalities in the league. The NHL has always struggled to showcase players' personalities, so Subban was a great fit for the cover of the game. Subban actually started to have injury troubles in the following seasons and was traded to the Devils in 2019, and eventually retires at only 32 years old. Before his 4th season in the league, Austin Matthews found himself on the cover of NHL 20. Matthews was coming off of a 73-point season, and being on the cover did nothing to stop his momentum. He continued to be an amazing goal scorer and even responsible defensively. After the release of this cover, Matthews was actually charged with disorderly conduct and disruptive behavior for an incident in the spring of 2019. So once again, someone getting into trouble after the cover was released. The last 2 seasons have been a little bit of a struggle for Matthews, but hopefully he gets back into the swing of things with the changes happening in Toronto. For NHL 21, we get another legacy-type cover with Alex Ovechkin. This was during COVID, so since there are no current players killing it at the moment, it made sense to have a cover honoring one of the legends of the game. Crosby has still never been on the cover though, and this might have been the time to do it since Ovi already had his cover, but I think this cover is pretty cool looking. For NHL 22, Matthews is back on the cover for some reason. He was coming off of a season with 41 goals in 52 games, which is very, very impressive. And the season this game came out, he had his first 60-goal year. But not much was different from the time Matthews was on the first time, so it was an interesting choice. But two-timers back-to-back here. In NHL 23, we get an interesting cover with Sarah Nurse and Trevor Zegras. Nurse and Zegras were both great choices because Zegras was breaking out and women's players were being introduced into the game, and Nurse is one of the best, shout out Golden Eyes. But the palm trees in the background and the players not having any equipment is weird to me. For Zegras, he was coming off of his sophomore season where he had 65 points in 71 games. His point totals weren't amazing, but he was a highlight reel that season, doing Michigans and Michigan passes.
Wow! And you can see So a minute 15 in. Oh, the lacrosse try again! Are you kidding?
But let's not forget that Svechnikov did it first.
He stops in a dive. Lacrosse move.
Season, Zegras began to have injury and seemingly attitude problems, leading to him being traded to the Flyers in 2025, where he just had the best season of his career. Cal McCarr makes it onto the cover of NHL 24 after having a great 66-point season in 60 games. He was young and exciting and so talented. Having him on the cover just made sense after the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup in 2022 and McCarr won the Conn Smythe. After being on the cover, he had two 90-plus point seasons in a row, so it doesn't seem like he was hindered by it at all. For NHL 25, we have a Hughes brothers cover. We have 3 cover stars here, and Jack Hughes got injured that season. Luke Hughes played 1 playoff game. Quinn Hughes missed the playoffs with the Canucks and was traded to the Wild the following year. So not great for the Hughes brothers since this came out, but 2 of them won gold though. Matthew Tkachuk and the Stanley Cup were on the cover of NHL 26, celebrating the Panthers' back-to-back Stanley Cups that Matthew was a huge part of. He spent most of the next season injured though, but that was known before the cover came out, so it's debatable if it has anything to do with the cover. Him and his brother do have a podcast now, but I guess that is more of a curse for the rest of the world rather than Matthew himself. And now we are coming up to a new game with NHL 27 and Macklin Celibrini on the cover. Will he be able to avoid being cursed? We will see. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the EA NHL cover curse in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more.